We have a group of people that are saying that Blue Eyes is not a meta challenger for 2025. So the reason why we're making this discussion today is because I'm sick of reading all of this. Well, Blue Eyes is not an actual deck, all right? It's actually just a primite deck with a package of things, and it's not going to perform well in the TCG. So smash the living crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more Oz content. So this is such an interesting way to look at things right now because there are some pretty key differences between the TCG and the OCG right now. OSS being one of those defining cards that allows Snake Eyes to kind of sit here and do this thing, but also Memento is a very large challenger right now in the OCG, but Memento in the TCG is not doing anything right now. Now that could change as 2025 starts to develop out here, but it just because you have these little shift arounds and decks out here does not mean that the Blue Eyes deck is not going to perform out here. Now remember, you have two camps of Blue Eyes decks. All right, the first one's going to be the Magia pile of cards, which I kind of call the more casual deck because you have to play the Chaos Max. You're really being more headstrong in that deck, where you're like, oh yes, I'm a Blue Eyes purist. I want to use all of Kaiba's cards. Maybe Bingo Machine, maybe no Bingo Machine. I do not like that build. It is not very fun to play. I mean, sure, you might feel like an anime Chad Master if you're getting the Magia established with an extra little sideline, but you have to high roll so high in that build. So if you're talking about that build of Blue Eyes not performing up to standard, I'll give you that. That is correct. But I have played infinite amounts of the Blue Eyes vanilla deck, all right? And the thing I'm going to tell you is, when we do get this deck's Primite monster, this deck turns into a completely different creature. The Primite package gives you so much advantage, it's actually kind of crazy. Now, the big thing that allows this deck to kind of function on the way that it does is Another Barrel actually acts as a bridge to get you into the field spell. I don't think people realize that this stupid card right here, Another Barrel, being a level 4 dragon monster that literally gets you into the Primite package, and then you can bridge him into the Blue Eyes line to get a field spell, and once you get the field spell, now you can bridge into your additional normal summon so that you can do things. And it's also not even classifying the fact, depending on how the rest of your hand opens up around this. That's the crazy thing. All right, now you've had builds out here in the past that have proven that Another Barrel is such an important card. You had builds that were playing Gold Sarcophagus and Redox to try to banish the Redox to go search for the Another Barrel. Okay, that's how important the Primite package is. Now, I'm going to tell you straight off the bat here that if you're looking at playing this deck and you're not seeing the Another Barrel, well, I can tell you're going to have a problem there. All right, but in terms of, dedicated package, you're playing the Special Summon E-Telly, all right, so you're at least dedicating one slot to that. You also do know that that card does allow you to ping a monster by targeting a normal monster you have. Primite Roar is actually just that good. Being able to take care of an opponent's normal summon monster while also having an E-Telly means to get a monster onto your field is really, really good. Also, I guarantee you, half of the Yu-Gi-Oh community has not even read Primite Roar to understand that the card has that line of text. First thing everybody reads about Primite Roar is they're like, oh, pay 2K, so summon a monster, okay, cool. I no longer give a crap about this card. And then they'll toss it aside out here, and that was just that. All right. And then, of course, you've also got, the rest of you're going with the triple Lordly Load, which is pretty standard. And then it's just drill beam interactions from there. The big downside to this deck, and it's the reason why I dislike it the most, is you have to play 2 Blue Eyes in the deck. Because if you get 1 Blue Eyes Bysteeled out of the graveyard, or your opponent sees Oh, hey, they got a blue eyes down. Oh, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to buy steel, bump that thing out of the graveyard. If you're only playing one blue eyes, you're going to have an issue. That's why you have to kind of brick on the two in order to do the thing. You do not have to play 3 blue eyes white dragons in the primite build. You are trying to be as consistent as you can out here to make sure you're getting to these answers. So typically, on a good board, depending on how many interruptions you should have, what, 2 spirit dragons, the true light up and running in terms of that. So that's 2 interruptions right there because the spirit dragons will rotate. You can leave both spirits up going into the next turn if you really want to. At least if you go into the Stardust Cipher and the other one, you will have, some protection, kind of, but then you're losing the ability to control the opponent's graveyard, depending on the matchup, which might not be really what you want to be having out here, but typically, you should probably be having the Majesty, the 2 sit up. You'll have the Primite Another Barrel loaded down into the graveyard, and you'll at least have a Blue Eye Special Summon with the Maiden coming back as well for potential chum block, depending on how many hand traps you've had in your opening hand. I've had a lot of scenarios where you'll open up 2 hand traps, the double Spirit Dragon, that loading, and the Majesty set. You have 5 forms of interruptions. Now, if you are just like, well, Robbie, ending on 5 interruptions, 2 Spirit Dragons, all the Omnis in the world, all the spot removal, the deck's not good. I just got a board breaker. Okay. Obviously, that calls for a shift in the meta to go back to the board breakers, but that means you still have to deal with Purge, Imperm, Ash Blossom, Effect Veiler, all of the extra hand traps that we're kind of playing in this build in order to, kind of bridge it together. I think you're grossly underestimating how this deck can kind of play things. Now, sometimes some of your hands, depending on where you are, can be a little bit awkward. Sometimes just having the Another Barrel, your opponent having 2 hand traps to disrupt the Another Barrel, from 1 getting to set and 2 to cut off from the Spirit Dragon getting to the field spell, yes, there can be some issues there. All right, your board breaking scenarios are going to depend on how you're kind of opening up out here in a lot of those opening hands. So it's also going to depend on if I hard draw the drill beam or not. I actually have realized that if you are able to get the drill beam loaded up and you can actually use this, drill beam alone is enough to end games for you. So I think that this deck is really, really good, man. I really do. I don't think I'm on copium out here because I did some playtesting. I think it was 2 days ago. Yeah, it was 2 days ago. I was on a 15-0 win streak against the meta. Now, there were a couple of, kind of nail biters that you kind of got yourself into in there, but there's a couple of scenarios where, if you're playing this deck, you have to have a high amount of hand traps. You have to understand that this deck has to function on the idea of being a 1-card engine in order to get things going. While, you're able to fill out the rest of the deck, it's kind of very similar to the concept of Fiendsmith out here. Fiendsmith was featuring a very large amount of hand traps while the deck works on this one, engine access in order to get what you need to be. And that's exactly what the Blue Eye stuff is trying to do as well. You're using very, very, very narrowed down 1-card engines to get you places, but as you're kind of bridging through those 1-card lines, you can get to something like Sage, for example, to get you into another hand trap so that you can continue to play the game, or a Sage turns into the Maiden, which gets you into True Light, and then that True Light just gives you the rest of the access to whatever you need to do. Yeah, you gotta have some discards and things like that, but that's not much of an issue. Blue Eyes, you have plenty of bricks to get rid of. Maybe you've got an extra Sage in your hand and you're like, oh, okay, if you're not saging the Blue Eyes off of the field in order to, go down that line, then maybe you need to access something else. It really just depends on how, things are opening up. So I want to give some major examples out here for this deck and just wanted to tell people this deck is a lot better than you're giving it credit for. A lot of your play lines are very, very strong when they need to. If your opponent does Fool Wars, so you can have some inconveniencing things, because hitting the roar on a Fool Wars does feel really, really bad. Giving your opponent too many resources will have them board break you relatively easily, and that's not exactly something that Blue Eyes is going to be able to recover from. Especially if you're giving them 4 cards to put up 2 Omnis, that is not okay. You got to be very careful when you're constructing your boards. So, do you guys think that Blue Eyes is awful? Please leave a comment down below. Tell me what you guys think, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here later today, guys. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.